Hey guys, I may have a problem with my DEF gauge, I'm not sure. Before I left on this vacation that we just took up to Yellowstone, I topped off my DEF tank completely full. I mean all the way up to where it was practically running over. In fact, I might have actually ran a little bit over. I wanted it topped off completely just to get an accurate reading on how much I was using. So the next time, I had to add some, I would go ahead and top it off the same way. I've never done that before. All I've ever done is just put 2.5 gallons in when it reaches a halfway mark or so, like most people do. Now, we know these gauges are very non-linear. Linear being, you start off at 100%, and as you use a little bit, it slowly tapers down to 0. These gauges don't do that. They'll start off at 100%, and they'll sit there forever, and then finally it'll start to move. And it's not really a linear move, I don't think. We're going to find out just whether it's this gauge or whether it's just that far off. So the only way I know to do it is drain the fluid out, take a look at the gauge. It's sitting there on 100% now. I went all the way to Yellowstone National Park, about 3,000 miles. On the way back, in Texas somewhere, as I decided, you know what, something's not right here. I've gone 3,000 miles and the thing hasn't moved off of full. So I better stop and pick up some fluid. I did, and it took 2.5 gallons and it topped it off all the way up to the top. But that's about right. 800 miles to 1,000 miles per gallon towing is normal usage. It's not much. But as I said, I put 2.5 gallons in it. That should have moved that thing off of full. So let's drain it out and look at the gauge and see what we got. I can't get it out 100%, but I can get it down pretty damn low. So we'll do that, and then we'll top it back off with some fresh fluid. All right, so let's take a look at my DEF gauge now. I topped it off in Texas, as I mentioned before. It's probably got about 800 to 1,000 miles on it. It's still reading 100%, hadn't moved. So we're going to drain it. I'm going to get under the truck now and go and drain it. I'm not going to put you through that because I've got videos on that already, and it's a pretty simple process. So, but I will get back with you when we get it out, see how much we get out. And then we'll take another look at this gauge and see if it moves any. All right, guys, so while I was under the truck here, in fact, I'm under the truck, I noticed something kind of interesting about the way this tank's made. And I tried to get in here as best I could with my camera, but because of the drive shaft and all the other obstructions under here, it's very difficult to show you this. But what we have here is a tank with a hump in it. So if you fill your DEF all the way up to the very top of the fill tube, you're actually holding some DEF in the line itself because, it's going to U-tube to the equalization point. And that's the way this tank is made here, and I think that may be one of the reasons why the gauge is so non-linear, but I don't know. It seems like they could have designed around that or designed that in. The tank actually has a big hump in it up at the top where you can hold more fluid. And I'll show you how much I drained out of here in a minute, but it's a lot. And we'll check the gauge and see. I'm still leery about the gauge though, because I still feel like we should have used enough to make that gauge come off of full, but we'll see. Hopefully not, because I don't want to have to start tearing into my DEF pump and gauge and all that stuff. So let's take a look at it, get out from under here and take a look and see what we got. Sometimes the most boring projects that you think is just going to be nothing but frustration turns out to be pretty interesting, and I think this is one of those cases. Look how much DEF fluid I got out of there. I'm calling that 5 gallons. Now I ran the truck about 800 miles since I topped it off, and it never moved off 100%. I still think I may have an issue because, like I said, I went close to 3,000 miles without the needle moving off of 100%. So we're going to check that in a little bit. But that's a lot of fluid, and the reason is, I think, is because of what I showed you, is that hump and the way that tank is made. And if you top it off 100% to the top of the filler, well, you're storing fluid that's probably not being measured, is my guess, the way that gauge is made. But anyway, let's go ahead and get in the truck and see what that looks like. All right, guys, let's turn it on and see what we got. Okay, well, that's, I guess, a relief, because I didn't want to tear into my DEF pump and all that mess. It's not that it's that much work, but it is expensive if you start having to change those parts. So that's good news. The takeaway for me here is when I get to a half a tank, you got a lot less than you think you have. And if you get to a half tank and you dump in 2.5 gallons, you got room for at least 2 more gallons. It won't show on the gauge, it'll show 100%. But I found that out, you know, doing this little experiment here. And I've just siphoned 5 gallons out of it. But yeah, when it gets down to 3/8 exactly is where I added 5 gallons. It was showing 3/8, I added 5 gallons. So if that's a 5.5 gallon tank, as they say it is, then I only had a half gallon left. I don't know if that's, you know, accurate or not, because I did fill it up all the way to the filler tube. But, you know, for me, I'm not going to go much below a half before I dump 2.5 gallons back in it. I don't know that I'll fill it all the way to the neck again, because you're holding DEF in the hose itself, the fill hose, the way that tank is made with that hump in it. But the gauge is, you know, it's just not linear. It's not showing an accurate fluid level. So I hope this helps, guys. And until next time, adios.